leave us alone after He created us. His attention has to be on us throughout our existence, otherwise we would vanish just like that mental image vanished from your minds. In order to try to understand this at a deeper level, this is it's a very simple concept, brothers and sisters, but if we understand it, truly it can change the way that we think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let me try to illustrate this a little bit more by looking at the story of Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran from Surah Al-Shu'ara. Please recite salawat. Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam, as reported by the Quran, explains this concept using very simple language, very simple words, very simple examples, but with very profound meaning. I just want to open up a little bit of the meaning tonight, inshallah. He says to people, in order to explain to them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that everything that you worship, these idols that you worship, they are my enemy. Why are they His enemy? Because they prevent Him from perfection. The goal of our life is perfection. Anything that prevents us from getting there is our enemy. He says, they are my enemy. فَإِنَّهُمْ عَدُوٌ لِي إِلَّا رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ, except for the Lord of the worlds. So when he talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he wants to talk about Him as being the Rabb. The Rabb, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has different names that describe His different qualities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Khaliq, He's the creator, but He's also the Rabb, the Lord. When Allah refers to Himself as the Lord, or the prophets refer to Him as the Lord, it's bringing into mind this idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just our creator, but He's also the one who's in charge of our affairs. He's the one who's sustaining us. He's the one who, moment by moment of our lives, He's keeping us alive. He's giving us our existence. So He says that all these idols that you worship, they're my enemy, except for Rabb al-Alamin, the Lord of the worlds. Now, who is this Lord? He says, الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِي. He's the one who created me, but because He created me, He also guided me. And so He's saying here that in order for Allah to be the creator, the consequence of that is that He also has to be somebody who guides as well. And this goes back to that, if you think about that image scenario that you guys went through, you saw that if you have this, once you create this image in your mind, now you're in charge of it. Right? You're in charge of, if you want to move it to the left in your mind or move it to the right in your mind, make it brighter, make it dimmer, make it bigger or smaller, or add some olives on top of the pizza piece, whatever you want to do to it, it's all up to you, because you're the one who is creating it in complete way. You're the creator and the sustainer of that. You're in charge of it. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also in charge of us, and the goal of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to take us towards perfection, to guide us. So He says, الَّذِي خَلَقَنِي فَهُوَ يَهْدِينِي. And then, in order to explain how is it that Allah guides us, He gives some examples. He says, وَالَّذِي هُوَ يُطْعِمُنِي وَيَسْقِينِي. He is the one who feeds me, and He is the one who quenches my thirst when I'm thirsty. Now, this concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feeding us, it's a very simple idea, but very powerful, brothers and sisters, because when we eat a lot, right? We have to eat at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, usually many times a day we end up eating. And so this is a reminder that even when we eat, we can be reminded of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's presence in our lives, His eminent presence, His very important, very powerful presence in our lives. Now, how is this the case? Why is it that eating should remind us of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Let's look at some examples. People who are, say, fishermen or fisherwomen, they go to the sea, they cast their rods and they pick up fish from the sea. For them, if they even have some idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is their Lord and He's the one who's taking care of them, for them it's very easy to understand the presence of Allah in their lives, because what are they doing? They're just putting a worm into the ocean and they're just waiting. They're just waiting, and it's completely not up to them. But somehow or the other, if you go and you go beside them and you see they always have these, like the professional ones, they have these buckets, right? Somehow or the other, they always have fish there. And they didn't do anything. And I think that they would never say that I'm the one who created this fish, or I'm the one who provided for myself. They'd be like, no, that I was provided some food, I was provided some fish today. And if they're honest about it, they would say that it wasn't the ocean that gave it to me, because the ocean isn't intelligent enough to realize that I'm standing there and said, oh, okay, I need to feed this person fish. They would say that no, there's a greater force at play here that created this world in such a way that when I put my worm there, I just had to wait. After some time, the fish came up, and that's what I ate. So that person can very easily recognize the presence of Allah in their lives. They can say, yes, I have a Lord who's watching over me, who's taking care of me, who's feeding me. But for most of us don't go out fishing. I don't know, unless are there any brothers who go out fishing for their daily meals? Oh, just once in a while, right? Okay. So for us, what do? We go to Safeway, we open up the refrigerator door, pull out this carton of milk, and stick it in our shopping cart, and we come home. Or for most of us, or the younger ones among us, it's not even that. We just open up the fridge door and take out the milk. So for us, so does that mean that we can't appreciate this verse here? No, we can. We just have to think about it a little bit more. We have to understand, for example, when we're drinking that glass of milk, that where is this coming from? This is a simple example, brothers and sisters, but all of us drink milk, right? Or something like we eat milk products, and this can be a source of appreciation of God in our lives when we do this. So we want to drink milk. When we start sipping the milk, we have to understand, where did this come from? How did it get to us? And we trace it back, through the chains of distribution to Safeway, back to where Safeway got it from the farmers, from the farms, back down to the animals. And we say, okay, how did that animal produce that milk? Where did that milk come from? Did that animal know that I was thirsty for milk and therefore it planned for me to get it? Or was it just kind of doing its own thing, and you're just part of this incredible system of creation that delivered that milk to my refrigerator and into my glass? The Quran describes this concept. It says that in Surah Al-Nahl, verse number 66, it says that you have a lesson in livestock, in these animals, like cows and goats and sheep. There's a lesson for you in them. Just think about it. They say that we let you drink from what comes from their bellies, in between the cud and the blood, pure refreshing milk for those who drink it. So if you think about it, where does this milk come from the cow? I mean, what sort of things is it passing through, and why doesn't it get tainted with those things? I mean, the cow doesn't even know that it's producing it. It might just be munching on its grass, and you have the farmer there working with the others to try to get the milking the cow. It has no clue what's going on. It's just eating its grass. It has no idea. It never took lessons to say how can it turn that grass into milk. It's just part of the system. So we're here, we're benefiting from that milk. We should understand that, okay, this is something that my God, my Lord is providing for me. It's part of the system of guidance that He wants me to keep fit because I have a purpose in life. Nabi Ibrahim says that He is the one who feeds me. He is the one who quenches my thirst when I'm thirsty. We human beings get thirsty, but we're not the only things that require liquid in order to nourish ourselves. Just think about automobiles. Automobiles rely on fuel, and fuel comes from oil in the ground. And in some ways, this example that the Quran gives us of this milk coming from between blood and the cud of the animal, in a way that you could say that the earth and the oil coming from the earth is a similar thing. Where is this oil coming from? You have, if you just dig into the earth, you have mud, you have sand, you have dirt, you have rocks and stones. Sometimes you find a few worms there too. But suddenly, in some places, if you dig far enough, you get to this black liquid, which is oil. And how much do we get from that oil? How much do we benefit from it? Like this cup that I have right here, it's made out of styrofoam. This comes from oil byproducts. All the plastic that we use, all the plastic that is involved in the casing of this computer, all that comes from oil. And somebody who, if you drive in a car, if you ever help gas up the car, then these types of thoughts can come to mind, that this gas, as it's pumping through, it's coming through a number of different channels for it to come to me. But ultimately, I'm depending on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala